Good evening. The Journalists Association has decided to set up a committee to monitor self-censorship in the media, claiming press freedom in the city is crumbling. The Self-Censorship Monitoring Committee will make public confirmed cases of censored stories. Winner Wong reports.
This year is the darkest for press freedom in several decades, according to the Journalists Association, which released its annual report today. The association says attacks on Hong Kong's media have been both physical and behind the scenes. The most high profile, it says, was the brutal cleaver attack on Kevin Lau, former chief editor of Ming Pao newspaper, who was replaced in January. While in office, he wrote editorials on the death of Chinese activist Li Wangyang and collaborated with overseas journalists to investigate the offshore assets of Chinese leaders. A month after he left his job, he was attacked by a man with a meat cleaver and suffered heavy wounds on the neck, back, and legs. While the attack has been labeled as against press freedom, the actual motive is still unclear. The association also claims that the authorities have been using licensing to gag unwanted voices. This includes denying entrepreneur Ricky Wong a free-to-air broadcasting license, and again when he pitched a mobile service. According to the association's report, there is no reasonable explanation as to why the government keeps denying Wong, since he has no apparent political links. The government justified denying Wong a license by saying there aren't enough advertisers to sustain 5 free-to-air channels. Many consider press freedom one of the foundations of Hong Kong's prosperity, but the Journalists Association says it's seriously under attack. They want to set up a channel through which the media can report incidences of oppression and censorship without fear. The Self-Censorship Monitoring Committee will also reveal to the public the details of some of the cases that have been submitted to it.
We have been shouting about the threat on press freedom for some time now. However, it is very difficult for members of the public to have a good idea on how bad press freedom has been in Hong Kong, unless they were told what exactly have been taken away. I mean, what exactly have been censored out. You don't know what you don't know. And to ensure this kind of investigations is objective and fair, the committee include not only members of the press, but academics and lawyers, so that we can have a fair investigations.
We are not just a group of people, helping only the frontline journalists. We are really trying to be objective and fair to all the parties involved. And we, of course, understand that the managers, the chief editors, etc., they could have their side of the stories.
The Journalists Association also noted the recent rise of outspoken online media, which face less financial and political pressure. But new media is not without its limitations, they say, as many still use traditional news outlets as their sources. Winner Wong, ATV News.
Democratic Party chairwoman Emily Lau says she thinks the Occupy Central movement's plan to block streets in the city's business heart will kick off next month at the latest. Radical lawmaker Leung Kwok-keung, meanwhile, is still urging his fellow Pan-Democrats to resign to force a by-election. Emily Sue reports.
Pan-Democrat lawmakers were once again at odds today, engaging in heated arguments during RTHK's City Forum at Victoria Park. Their list of hot topics included Democratic Party chairwoman Emily Lau's estimates on Occupy Central's timetable and radical legislator Leung Kwok-keung's call to spark a by-election. Leung, who just finished serving his 1-month jail sentence yesterday, was continuously booed by pro-Beijing demonstrators in the audience. But that didn't stop him from urging his fellow lawmakers to resign to force a territory-wide poll, similar to the one held in 2010. The radical lawmaker argued that if enough people show support for this government-monitored by-election, the pro-establishment camp will lose all legitimate reasons to suppress pro-democracy activities.
My argument is very simple. Since we got over 1 million votes in the 2010 election, how come we got no confidence to claim the victory?
Civic Party leader Alan Leong, who was one of the 5 lawmakers who quit in 2010 to force the so-called 5 constituencies referendum, said he doesn't mind doing it again, but
if you ask me whether there is an immediate need, I would say no. But the Civic Party and I would not rule that out. If at the appropriate timing, it would help to promote and achieve true democracy for Hong Kong.
Leung said instead of distracting the public with another by-election, the focus should be put on pushing the Alliance for True Democracy's proposal for the 2017 chief executive poll, which won the most votes in Occupy Central's unofficial referendum on political reform. Democratic Party chairwoman Emily Lau agreed. She said her party would rather put the focus on preparing for Occupy Central movement's plan to block streets in the city's business heart to push for universal suffrage in the 2017 chief executive election. Her party will meet on Tuesday to discuss that.
The Democratic Party is not very optimistic. In fact, we are pessimistic. That's why we are now getting ready for the Occupy Central campaign, because that may come very soon, maybe in July or in August.
Although the Occupy leaders themselves have not finalized a timetable yet, Lau said tensions between the SAR and Beijing will worsen when the National People's Congress Standing Committee meets next month. Lau said Beijing is likely to put its foot down on Hong Kong's constitutional development and roll out a reform package that fails to meet international standards, at least in the eyes of the pan-democrats. She said when that happens, Occupy Central could be triggered at any moment. Political commentator Lau Sai Leung meanwhile said what's more important is for the pan-democratic camp to stop their infighting and stay united. He added Beijing initiated the controversial white paper to see how many people in Hong Kong support civil nomination. Lau stressed that although 800,000 people voted in Occupy's vote, and July 1st organizers claim 510,000 took to the streets during Tuesday's rally, it isn't enough to force Beijing to compromise.
Dozens of people marched to the Financial Secretary's house today to protest against his fiscal working group's term being extended. John Tsang, meanwhile, says he's concerned lawmakers won't be able to finish wading through more than 50 bills and funding requests before the summer holiday begins. Anne-Marie Sim reports.
With LegCo heading for its summer break after the 9th, the Finance Minister is worried it won't be able to clear a backlog of more than 50 bills and funding requests before then. John Tsang wrote in his online diary that a lot of time was wasted at Friday's Finance Committee meeting on points of order and criticised lawmakers for passing only 2 items after 6 hours. The finance chief said the situation in LegCo had deteriorated over the past week, and that gave people a feeling of helplessness. Tsang promised the public that the government would try its very best to get as many funding requests approved as possible and called on lawmakers to help do that. But he added that a marathon 5-day session of the entire council would just increase the likelihood of a lack of quorum. Health Chief Ko Wing-man today also expressed concern that LegCo wouldn't be able to clear the backlog of bills and motions before the summer break. Meanwhile, scores of people protested outside the Finance Minister's official residence on Shoo Son Hill this morning. They're angry at Friday's decision by the government to extend the term of John Tsang's working group on long-term fiscal planning, which came up with the idea of a future fund. The fund is designed to pay for infrastructure in years where there is a budget deficit. It was put forward by the working group, which had warned the government was heading for a financial crisis of Greek proportions within as few as 7 years. But the protesters argue that the government could just withdraw cash from the fund without asking LegCo first.
Health Chief Ko Wing-man has expressed great concern after 200 patients were found to have been given out-of-date sutures during heart operations at Queen Elizabeth Hospital last year. But first, in a roundup of local stories, about 40 protesters marched to Wan Chai Police Headquarters to protest against the July 1st rally. Emily Sue reports.
About 30 representatives from the Motor Transport General Workers Union and 10 taxis marched and drove from Wan Chai Southhorn Playground to the police headquarters this afternoon to protest against organizers of the July 1st rally. They say organizers deliberately slowed down the procession, blocking traffic near its protest route from Causeway Bay to Central. The protesters also blamed organizers for the financial loss of many taxi drivers, minibuses and regular buses on Tuesday as they weren't able to do business as usual. About 100 members of the Oppressed Tenants Alliances marched from Wan Chai to the government's headquarters in Tamar this morning to protest against the lack of control and monitoring over skyrocketing rents in the past decade. The protesters demanded the government review the existing landlord and tenant amendment bill. They say the monthly rent for a small flat 10 years ago was about $1,000, but an 80 square foot subdivided flat nowadays would cost at least $4,000 to $5,000. Protesters blame the huge increase on the lack of government policies, adding that most people in grassroots communities cannot afford to renew their rental contracts. They called on the administration to stabilize the rental market and limit increases for the poor and needy. Health Chief Ko Man says he's gravely concerned after 200 patients were found to have been given out-of-date sutures during heart operations in Queen Elizabeth Hospital last year. Ko said the hospital authority has a risk management mechanism and does regular checks on expiry dates of medicine and medical equipment, but he will follow up on the case. The health chief said he will liaise with the authority to see if more staff should be deployed to carry out extra checks to avoid similar incidents in the future. The hospital said it has already contacted all affected patients for checkups, although experts say the risk of infection is low. The authorities' investigation into the incident will be completed in 6 to 8 weeks.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel met Premier Li Keqiang in Beijing today, the first day of a 3-day visit to the mainland, her 7th trip as Germany's leader. Merkel is said to be leading a high-level German economic delegation, and her trip is aimed at keeping relations between the two countries strong. Germany is China's largest trading partner in Europe, and China, a crucial market for German export goods, is Germany's most important trading partner in Asia. Merkel was accompanied by executives from Volkswagen, Siemens and Deutsche Bank. She is also expected to meet President Xi Jinping. Overseas, Ukraine's government is celebrating after its troops recaptured a rebel stronghold in the east, which had been under the control of pro-Russian separatists for months. But the rebels are said to be regrouping in other towns, and residents in the east have slammed Kiev for launching airstrikes against areas where no rebels were based. Arthur Okiola reports.
Ukrainian forces deployed tanks as they moved in on rebels in the eastern separatist stronghold of Kramatorsk. About 20 military trucks and buses were later seen driving from the area, filled with armed rebels. Some of them had fled Slavyansk, which they had held for a few months. After raising the Ukrainian flag at a government building, ammunition was brought out for inspection. The recapture of Slavyansk was declared a huge victory by Kiev.
Над містом, які бойовики вважали.
Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko praised what he called the liberation of Slavyansk from terrorists, saying the Ukrainian flag was flying above what armed militants considered an unapproachable fortress. But he warned while it was a turning point in the fight with armed militants, it still wasn't a full victory and not a reason to celebrate. However, residents in the Donetsk region criticized the army's excessive force, as towns have been pummeled by shells and airstrikes for weeks. This woman said she wouldn't wish what her town went through even on her enemies, saying a tank shelling would be a joke compared to what she and other residents suffered. This resident complained there are no militants or terrorists in her town, and the school her child was supposed to go to in September had been blown up. Kiev began its large-scale offensive after deciding against extending a week-long ceasefire, which it claims was violated by the rebels several times. Despite hospitals, schools, and civilians being targeted, the bombings have been approved by the U.S. government, which said Kiev has the right to protect its territory. This appears to contradict the U.S. stance on Syria, where Washington said Damascus had no right to launch strikes on rebels trying to take over the country. Arthur Akiola, ATV News.
Israel has arrested 6 suspects in the killing of a Palestinian teenager in Jerusalem last week in what appears to have been a revenge attack. The suspects, who are said to be Jewish extremists, are said to have abducted and killed 16-year-old Mohammed Abu Qadir by setting him on fire. Israeli media quoted security sources as saying Qadir was killed out of nationalist motives, but it's believed his death was revenge for the killing of 3 Israeli students in the West Bank last week. The killing killing of the Palestinian boy sparked riots in Jerusalem, during which his cousin, a US citizen, was caught on video being beaten up by Israeli police. Sports news. In the last quarter-final match of the World Cup, Holland beat Costa Rica on penalties to set up a semi-final with Argentina. Belgium took on two-time champions Argentina in Brazil's blazing heat for a place in the Final Four. The Argentines wasted no time and took the lead in the 8th minute when Gonzalo Higuain smashed the ball into the back of the net. Lionel Messi took a free kick, but his curling shot missed the target. Belgium proved they weren't pushovers and kept pressing for goals. Higuain missed a good chance to double the South Americans' tally when his shot bounced off the crossbar. With time running out, Belgium desperately searched for an equaliser, but Marouane Fellaini's header went over the net. Belgium keeper Thibaut Courtois jumped into action to block a late goal attempt from Messi. But Argentina held on for the 1-0 win, and it was enough for the South American team to reach the semi-final stage, the first time since 1990. Argentina will next play Holland in Sao Paulo after they beat Costa Rica in a penalty shootout. The Dutch dominated the match and almost broke the deadlock, but Costa Rica keeper Keylor Navas was quick to block a low drive from Robin van Persie and saved Wesley Sneijder's follow-up. They continued to push for a goal but failed on several chances. With no results after 90 minutes and in extra time, the match went to penalties. The Netherlands took goalkeeper Tim Krul off the bench for the shootout, and it's a decision that coach Louis van Gaal won't regret. The Newcastle custodian denied goals from Brian Ruiz and Michael Umana to put the Netherlands through 4-3 on penalties. In cycling, Britain's Mark Cavendish has pulled out of the English Tour de France after crashing in the first stage and injuring his shoulder. Germany's Marcel Kittel went on to win the stage. Cyclists were given a right royal send-off in the English city of Leeds as Prince Harry, his brother Prince William, his wife Kate Middleton launched the start of the Tour de France. Huge crowds gathered to watch the competitors head into the Yorkshire Dales, and thousands of fans lined the 190.5-kilometre route. Britain's Mark Cavendish suffered a nightmare day after he collided with Simon Gerrans in the final sprint in Harrogate. He dislocated his right shoulder in the crash and has decided to quit the race. Meanwhile, Marcel Kittel of Germany clinched victory by surging past Peter Sagan in the final 100 metres. Defending champion Chris Froome finished 6th. Kittel claims both the opening stage honours and the leader's yellow jersey for the second successive year, which was presented to him by the Duchess of Cambridge.
Yeah, I still can't believe it. It's unreal. It's so great.
The second stage is a 201-kilometre stretch from York to Sheffield. The weather forecast for the next few days. Very hot again tomorrow. There will be sunny periods, but showers are also expected. Temperatures will range from 28 to 33 degrees. Here's a look at the weather around the world. That's all the news for now. Thanks for watching ATV. I'm Bo Leung. Good night.
Coming up, Newsline. ATV World Spectacular.
I'm called Hong Hei Kwon. What's your name?
Fighting for justice. Intensified the misunderstanding with father.
I'm not going to let you lose in front of your man, father. Don't worry.
The covered face could not be more familiar.
That you, Bout, was Manchurians, while admitting that you are a Han dog.
This is none of your business. Get lost.
Rebelling Qing dynasty to rebuild the Ming dynasty.
Young man, come with me. I want to have a word with you.
The legend of the Kung Fu Master is just on The Kung Fu Master, Wednesday night at 8:30.
爸爸俾你返工補充體力。
記住睇清楚有效期喎。
合資格申請職業性失聰補償計劃嘅工友都要清楚遞表期限啦。
一直從事指定高噪音工作嘅工友可隨時申請，但如果轉換崗位、轉行或者退休，要申請職業性失聰補償，就要喺離開高噪音工作後12個月內遞交申請。過期申請唔接受㗎。
Elemental Evolution, ATV Miss Asia Pageant 2014 is now inviting applications. Elemental Evolution, ATV Miss Asia Pageant 2014. Application form is available at ATV website and the following locations. Be cool, keep updated with the international music scene. Warner Music Power Station, Thursday night at 10.
山美，水美，人更美。走遍大地神州，最美多彩贵州。绿绿的贵阳，爽爽的贵阳，回到了童年时光。爽爽的贵阳。
This program only reflects the personal views of the program hosts and/or the individual contributors.
Good evening, this is Newsline. I'm Michael Chigani. Tonight, Hong Kong in political crisis. I have with me Mr. Ronnie Tong from the Civic Party. Now, Ronnie Tong, as many of you know, is described as a moderate pan-Democrat, the voice of reason in Hong Kong. Now, Ronnie Tong, thanks for coming back again. You know, I invite you a lot because you are a moderate Democrat and you speak with clarity and as I say, you're the voice of reason. Now, a couple of days back, you, along with the other pan-Democrats in the Legislative Council, when Bo Leung went to the LegCo to take questions and answers, as you know, there was a huge protest there. All the pan-Democrats walked out, and one or two of the so-called radicals, they threw, Raymond Wong Yuk-man, he threw a glass, a drinking water glass, at the chief executive. You know, I want to ask you this. You know, you're all supposed to be pan-Democrats, but do you tolerate or accept this kind of violence?
Well, first of all, I think this is a common misconception. What happened during the Q&A session with the CE were two different things. The pan-Democrats, they wanted to stage a protest and a walkout. Actually, I personally was not there on that morning.
So you didn't attend LegCo that day?
I didn't attend at all, but I agree with what.
Did you deliberately avoid it because you knew what was going to happen?
Well, let's put it this way.
It sounds like that way.
Let me put it this way. I have asked 3 questions already. So originally I was thinking of staying away, even before they decided to have a walkout.
Because they decided a day before they were going to walk out.
That's right. I've already decided to stay away. I need to do some work in relation to my practice. So I said, no point for me to go because I have 0 chance of asking a question. And besides, look, I'm not thrilled to see Bo Leung anyway. But when they say they want to stage a walkout, I said, well, fine, in that case, I won't even come. But anyway, so
but
that's
surely you need to be there to walk out to demonstrate a viewpoint, right?
Well, I joined.
You didn't agree with the walkout?
No, I joined legislature to be a part of the process of lawmaking and
not throwing things,
and to deal with Hong Kong matters which are of great importance to Hong Kong. I joined LegCo not to be a protester. So as you will see over the last 10 years, I very rarely join in many of the the protests.
People say you've become part of the pro-government side.
Well, this is unfortunate, but if you want to label me that way, there's nothing I can do. But let's go back to the topic about what happened at the Q&A. Now, the Democrats order a walkout. What happened with the People Power and Raymond Wong was a completely different thing. We did not include them in our walkout. They simply
took advantage of your walkout.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they always do that, and they did what they do, and this is what they think they're there for.
But they timed it to your walkout,
and so everybody.
So it seemed like it was part of the same thing.
Exactly. So everybody considered that that's what part of the the Pan-Democrats doing. So much so that right after lunch we have to come out and to say that in fact what had happened. In relation to Raymond Wong and People Power had got absolutely nothing to do with us. In fact, we condemn.
You do condemn the throwing of the water glass and so on.
Right? So first of all, these are two different things. Secondly, what Raymond Wong did was basically challenging the law, because it doesn't really matter.
As a barrister,
was
that illegal?
I say that. There are two things. First of all,